Jason, come outside!
What's man talking about? Get the camera off me, man.
End of.
Because there's nothing else to do. No, I'm just joking, just joking.
Go and do something.
Part of the cooking they're getting.
Let's roll!
Hey, you're filming all that, were you? Brilliant.
Not now, mate.
That's just a little scene from our behind the scenes that we've got now. If you've got our membership, you can go and check that video out. So a brand new feature that we've got, but you want to watch the behind the scenes stuff. Absolutely incredible. But listen, hi, welcome along to DR Sports today. Thought that we go live today to talk about this big talking point today, which is all about Manchester City and the 115 charges, or at least we thought it was 115. We're being told today that actually it's 130 charges. And I wanted to discuss it. Are Manchester City, in your opinion, going to get found guilty of this? If they are found guilty, what do you think the consequences should be? And is actually Manchester City getting found guilty good for the league? What does it do for the league if they did actually get found guilty? I mean, and the other thing I'd like to know is, do you reckon it's having an effect on Manchester City? Because it's not the normal Man City that we've seen over the last few seasons, that we've been seeing recently. We know about all the injuries and stuff like that they've got to players like Rodri. But even with that, players like Foden, and they're just not been playing the same. Could that be the effect of the charges or the looming charges? Now, we're being told that everything's been like literally concluded now, and we're going to get a verdict on this probably, into January of next year. We will find out what is going to happen. Now, this could be absolutely seismic for Manchester City and for the Premier League. If they're found not guilty, everything just continues on as normal, I guess. There's no problems for Manchester City. They get to keep all the titles. They don't get relegated, no points deductions, nothing like that. And it will be very, very embarrassing for the Premier League. Remember, it's the Premier League that are pushing these charges. There were charges originally made by UEFA, and those charges got dropped, even though I've been reading that UEFA were advised at the time that they could appeal. This information has come out recently that they were advised at the time that they could appeal against this and would have good grounds to appeal, which that will give the Premier League hope of success. But it's the Premier League that have pursued these charges against Manchester City. There have been a lot of people out there saying, oh, I don't think the Premier League want Manchester City to get found guilty. Well, if that was the case, I don't think they would have pushed for these charges. It's kind of now in the Premier League's interest for City to get found guilty because they're the ones that have brought these charges. If City are not guilty, it's going to be very, very embarrassing for the Premier League. And I'd probably expect some heads to roll for them bringing this. If Manchester City are found guilty, on the other hand, what are the consequences? Will they get a points deduction, a big points deduction? Because there's a lot of charges. And when you look at some of the seriousness of some of these charges, it could be a big points deduction. Could they get relegated, from out of the Premier League and drop down leagues? We've seen it happen in other countries. When people say it's too big for it to happen, we've seen over in Italian football, Juventus, which is the biggest club in Italy, relegated down divisions when found guilty of these type of offences. So that's a possibility. Could it be a mega fine? That is another option. I guess there'd be a lot of cynics out there saying, well, listen, for a club that's owned by a state in Abu Dhabi, a mega fine, what's that mega fine going to be? They just probably in their sleep just go like that, here it is. What are the consequences going to be? Could they be stripped of titles? I know Pep Guardiola, should I say, the other day was holding up 6 fingers. Could those fingers go down to like this? If they're found guilty, could those titles be stripped away? would you want those titles stripped away? If you're an Arsenal fan, would you want to be handed over the titles for the last 2 years where we finished runners-up? If you're a Liverpool fan, would you want all those titles for all those years when you finished runners-up to Manchester City? Or would it be like, no, I don't want those? There's so many interesting scenarios. If Manchester City were found guilty, will there be other teams in the division suing them? Because there has been this rumor that there are other clubs that are saying, well, hold on, if they're found guilty and they were the reason that I got relegated, or they're the reason why I missed out on winning the league, or they're the reason why I didn't get into the Champions League, I want compensation. What then? I mean, this is huge. It's seismic. And nobody at this moment knows what's going to happen. Not until we get the results. And then when we do get those results, let's be real, if City were found guilty, I would expect them to appeal. So it's seismic. It's absolutely seismic. And I want to get your opinions on it. I really want to find out how you are feeling about this. Now, you know, as Roger Smith says there, Liverpool lost the league twice, but only by 1 point. But regardless of that, they lost the league to Manchester City. If City are found guilty, you as a Liverpool fan, would you want those titles? Titles will be just tainted, says MB Zondi. The official Ake says, we all know that nothing's going to happen. I don't think you can say that, because I was speaking to somebody the other day quite high up in football, and they were saying to me that, no. If you feel that the Premier League, nothing's going to happen with this, we're being very naive. And he was reminding me that it is the Premier League that has brought this action against Manchester City. Now, think of it as, I don't know, like somebody commits an offense against me and I'm bringing, you know, I mean, I've reported in and I'm bringing charges against him. I've got lawyers and all that backing me to try and go to court. I want to win. I don't want to lose. And as I said, it was the Premier League who resurrected these charges against Manchester City. We know that these sort of charges have been looming for quite a long time. But it's the Premier League who sort of pushed for this. As I said, if they lose this, it's going to be very, very embarrassing for the Premier League. And probably you'd see guys high up in the Premier League having to resign. So to just say nothing's going to happen, I don't think it's as simple as that. Grinny says, stripped of the titles, but not given to anyone. Let there be a void so that we can see how many Man City embarrassed. So we can see how many Man City embarrassed our league with cheating. You know, listen, as an Arsenal fan, I'm not sure if I want titles handed to me because of charges. Manchester City won the leagues on the pitch. So I'd feel weird if, you know, he's then decided that actually Arsenal are the champions of those two last seasons. It wouldn't sit well with me, but people will argue that, like in athletics, for instance, and I remember I was at the Olympics in France in the summer, right? I was in Paris for the Olympics, right? And they had like a park down there where loads of fans would come. I forgot the name of it. It was like a big fan park, and loads of fans would come there. And on one particular day when I went there, they were handing medals out to winners of the last Olympics, the last Winter Olympics. I was like, this is odd. Why? And the reason why they were doing that was because these medalists, they'd finished with silvers and bronze medals, but it had been found out after the Olympics that the guys that won the gold were drugs cheats. So they've been stripped. So they were doing a presentation to these athletes in the park where there was thousands and thousands of people to say that you guys were the rightful winners. You got silver. You've now been promoted to gold. You got bronze, was promoted to silver. And those guys received those medals and were parading those medals and were really, really happy about doing so. And they were being declared the rightful winners. Would you feel comfortable with that happening with football if you're an Arsenal fan or a Liverpool fan and a Man United fan? I think over the last, how many years that City have been winning these titles, would that sit right with you, or would you be like, no, I don't want them? That's another interesting one. Red Baron with a super chat says, all right, Robbie, United fan, but love what you do. I want City to get expelled from the league and all titles removed. Otherwise, football is dead. Now, big up Red Baron for the super chat, but are you saying that because you're a Man United fan, or because you feel that that's exactly what should happen? Would this league be poorer without Manchester City? Would it be worse? That's another interesting thing. There's so many questions around this. So many questions around it. Shaka Phillips, on the other hand, says, Man United fan here, don't want the titles. Just want compensation fee, with City being relegated to the National League and stripped of their titles. Wow. I mean, Sean Walters says, if found guilty, Premier League should make, I think he means embarrassment of them, and I'm a Chelsea fan. I'm not fussed, says DT247, and some second-rate titles, to be honest. No parade, no moments with the family and friends. Titles removed or City liquidated, what would you prefer? I don't listen. You know I feel for in this? I feel for the Man City fans, right? Because they've had nothing to do with and these are all alleged things. If anything's gone on in the background, they've had nothing to do with it if they're guilty. And if they're innocent, they've had to go through it. And every time they talk about how wonderful their team is, there's people talking about, yeah, but there's an asterisk because of charges. So you got to feel it for those fans. And if I'm a Man City fan, I want this cleared up at the earliest possible date so I can just get on with supporting my team. That's how I'd feel about it. And I'd like to hear from any Man City fans out there. Well, how do you feel about it? When you always hearing people just saying, oh, it's asterisks. Yeah, it don't matter. Yeah, it's not a real win because they bought it and, they've cheated. And how do you guys feel about it? Stephen Island's grandmother says, Robbie, what City players would you take on a free if they were relegated? That is a lot. I'd take a lot. Rodri, when he gets fit, I'd have him. Haaland. There's a lot you take, you know what I mean? Nico says, Man City did not win a game in November. In that time, Arsenal managed to jump a massive 2 points ahead of them in the title race. Bro, I'm not interested in that right now. What I'm interested in is, do you want Man City relegated if they're found guilty? Do you want their title stripped if they're relegated? And also, I don't know. I want to hear from City fans out there. Do you think the pressure's getting to the players, to the manager? Look at Pep the other day. I've never seen him like that. Never. Mo Isaac says, I'm a Man City fan, but we all want to know the truth about our club. And I think that's a really sensible answer. And I feel that if it was me and this was Arsenal, I want to know what's going on. If we're guilty, take the guilty charges, take the consequences, and those people that are responsible for that would have to go because they would have ruined my football club. But then on the other hand, if I'm innocent, I want my name cleared so football fans are not out there claiming that there's asterisks. What's the word? Asterisks? Asterisks. I'll say that if it's in plural. Against my name for the titles that I've won. I would want this being cleared up. So Mo Isaac, I completely understand where you're coming from on this. De Horido says, Man City transfer ban, but Haaland able to be transferred. See, that's what I mean. All those sort of jokes. If you're a City fan, you don't want to be hearing that. You don't want to be hearing that. Prem Senpar saying, Robbie, are you saying that you wouldn't take back-to-back trophies? It's a hard one for me, Prem. I'll be honest with you, right? Yeah, you take it. Because I guess when you look in the, book of, stats and stuff like that, you can say we won 2 titles because City are stripped. But I wouldn't feel good about it. I'll be honest with you. I'll be like, it wouldn't feel like we've won. It wouldn't feel like it because we didn't win it on the pitch. They pipped us on one season. They beat us in the other season. The players that they had on the pitch beat us fair and square. So it wouldn't feel right. But then on the other hand, would they have had such a powerhouse of players if they'd have stuck by the rules over the years? Because this is the matter at hand. It is a bit like financial doping in the, you're talking about a club, if these rumors are true, that broke rules that everybody else was sticking by. And remember, when you talk about the Premier League, it's a organization, isn't it, of 20 clubs. And all 20 clubs agree to stick to the rules. And then that's why it's a level playing field. If clubs are not sticking to the rules, what is it called when you're not sticking to the rules? You're cheating. And if you're cheating, you don't deserve to win the league. But getting the title handed over, like I saw I saw at that park in Paris, and all of those medalists were really happy that they've been finally recognized as being gold medal winners. Would I feel the same in football like that as a fan? I don't know. The answer to this, we've never been here. We've never been there, but at this moment in time, I don't want the title like that. I want to win it on the pitch. It's a strange one. Honestly, I don't know how I'd feel. Oreo Alay says, don't matter if City makes the league better. If they won by different rules won by different rules than others, then strip all the titles and relegate at least 2 levels. Listen, they were down in those divisions back in the day, but imagine City. Would it be good for the league? No, Manchester City. Listen, football is a worldwide brand right now. Manchester City, with some of the players and stuff like that and what they've done over the years, have made this league even bigger as a worldwide proposition. And then it would be a big embarrassment on the league, wouldn't it? If this is true that one team was cheating, it's embarrassing for the league. Embarrassing. I was reading the other day, it was really interesting, right? Because I was reading what typical Jose Mourinho, where he was responsible. Because remember when Pep, at the end of that game, he held up 6 fingers and stuff like I was saying, we've won 6 titles and stuff like that. And then him and Mourinho got into a little bit of a spat. It's typical Mourinho. And Mourinho was saying that he feels that, when he was asked about the fact that he was holding up 6 fingers, and he's saying that, because I think Guardiola was asked in a press conference about it. And he was saying, listen, we won 6 and Mourinho only won 3. And then Mourinho got really angry with that and saying, listen, at least we won our ones fair and square. They didn't win theirs fair and square. They've kind of made up a bit since, but Mourinho is still insisting that there should be justice. And he goes, if City are guilty, there should be justice for teams that have, gone by the rules. And he's right, isn't he? He's right. There should be justice for teams that have stuck by the rules. So, yeah. I mean, it's still so interesting. Here's another super chat from Red Baron. He says, what about the regular football fans of other clubs that have had to suffer the sports washings from what the sports washing City have done? Man City have like 5 fans anyway. They don't have 5 fans. Listen, this is a big myth about Man City, right? Man City have always been a very well-supported club, even before they got the money. Listen, they're not Man United, they're not Liverpool, they're not Arsenal. They didn't have the big fan base like that, but they did have a big fan base, even before all the money came in. Obviously, by winning titles, by buying the best players, that has been able to take them on to another level. The sports washing thing, listen, they ain't the only club that have gone and got ownership from states or big benefactors. Literally every club in the Premier League has big benefactors or big people that, However, the level of money that has been pumped into Manchester City and teams like Chelsea and that is unprecedented and has helped them to emerge from being probably average clubs in the league to being superpowers in the league. Now, is that a bad thing? Is it unfair or is it not fair? To me, as long as they've stuck by the rules, it's fair. You know, I'm an Arsenal fan, and it hurts me that Chelsea have won more titles, have won more Champions Leagues than we have. They've won 2, we ain't won any. And a lot of people will argue, yeah, but that's because the money came in. But listen, if they did it fair and square, because we could have done the same thing. We got billionaire owners as well. And actually, we spend a lot more money than most clubs. So if they've done it fair and square, you just got to hold your hands up and say they've done it fair and square. They haven't broken any rules. If they've cheated, on the other hand, that is something different. And you have to be brought to account. It's as simple as that. Super chat here from Wicked Dubs. He says, if Man City are guilty, Liverpool should be awarded the trophy next season and all the accolades. Just like you said, they did when you were in France. I think for any team, it's got to be completely fair. And he says that's coming from Canada with love. Thank you very much for that. Yeah. I mean, this is going to be an interesting one. That if they are found, and I keep using this word if, and I think it's very important to use the word if here because they haven't been found guilty of anything right now. They're accused of these charges, whether it be 115 or 130. Now they're saying it's 130, whatever it is. These are accusations. Manchester City are not guilty of any crimes as we stand. These are crimes that have been investigated, allegations that are being investigated. If they're guilty, has to be the full consequences. And I think you heard that Man City fan earlier. He said the same thing. I don't want to find out what's gone on. If they're not guilty, I think the Premier League have got some serious questions to answer. And, you know, but if City are guilty, and then, you know, the thing is where it's going to really get messy is that it's not just this thing about giving titles to Liverpool or Arsenal. What about the clubs that have missed out over the years on Champions League football? Getting into the Champions League is huge for football clubs. It brings in a massive income. That is why all the managers of the top clubs are under severe pressure to get into the Champions League. Erik ten Hag lost his job probably because those owners of the club looked at it and said, you know what? No chance of getting into the Champions League this season. He didn't get in there last season. Yeah, we won the FA Cup. Yeah, we've won a Carabao Cup. But the holy grail for the owners, obviously, is winning the Champions League, but getting in there because they get so much income for the club. So those teams that missed out, because remember, literally every season, City finish, you know, in the top 4, you know, winning the league half the time, but they're in the top 4. Those clubs that have missed out, they may claim compensation. This thing could get really, really messy. Honestly, it really could. Pratish says, Robbie, if Juve could get relegated, then City definitely can. And you're right, they can. I think all these people who are saying, I mean, I was in Dubai the other day and a couple of my friends down there. I mean, obviously, City's a club in Abu Dhabi, which is just next to Dubai, but it's part of the Emirates, the Emirati, who own the club. They all seem pretty confident that nothing's going to happen. You know, if they get found guilty, I think there's serious consequences. I think some of the clubs, the other clubs in and around the Premier League, they're going to want their pound of flesh. And some of them, if they're found guilty, will be quite right to demand their pound of flesh. Because as I said, not only have teams missed out on leagues, but teams have missed out over the years on Champions Leagues. So who finished 5th last year? Who finished 5th last year? Was it Man United finished 5th last year, wasn't it? Somebody remind me. But they missed out on the Champions League. If City are guilty, Could they be claiming compensation for that? What will happen to Man City? Will the owners turn around and say, right, you know what, we've had enough of this Premier League. We feel we've been picked on. We're withdrawing all our money and we're out. Honestly, that thing in January is going to be serious when it comes out. Honestly, it's going to be seismic if they're found guilty. Wicked Dub says salary cap is the key to stop this massive spending. Done deal. NHL does not have these problems. Yep, salary caps have been a thing that's been muted over the years. But that's a bit different to what we're talking about here. This is nothing really to just do with salary caps and things like that. This is a lot to do with the fact that teams have been cheating. And yeah, you know what I mean? Part of the cheating has been getting around, you know, that sort of scrutiny on your finances by saying, oh, I'm being sponsored by this and sponsored by that, when you ain't really, you know, you're kind of really sponsoring yourself to get round those charges, so that you round those sort of rules, so that you can buy the most expensive players. Some people will say it's smart, but if you've got 20 clubs that have signed up to a code of conduct and you are not adhering to that, you're cheating. Plain and simple. Pretest says, I want them to be stripped of the 2011-12 title and that Aguero goal to never be mentioned again. Would alleviate some of that pain slightly. I mean, the other thing is, right, is that what happens to all those moments? How would the players feel? Because really and truly, the players would be let down. As I said, the fans and the players would be let down. All right, you could turn around and say, well, listen, those fans got a lot of money. They were well rewarded. But imagine if you are Aguero. And then you're being told that actually that title that you won, you've been stripped. How would you feel about that? You'd be like, that golden moment. I mean, yeah, it still stays with me in that, but actually, we didn't actually, it's been awarded to someone else. It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm gonna tell you, I can't wait for January just to see what the real reaction, you know, is going to be to whatever happens. Pepe says, if City are guilty, play celebrations by Kool and the gang at their funeral. It doesn't seem to be a lot of sympathy coming here for Manchester City, I must say. Gio says, no Champions League football next season, transfer ban, points deduction for next season, plus a fine. Would that be enough for you guys? Also, every City fan should apologise, says Red Baron. What have they done? They haven't done it. A City fan has not done anything wrong. Even if they were found guilty, they wouldn't, you know, I don't think they would have done anything wrong. Rampage says, I think the public will give Liverpool credit for winning the league, but not City, because people kind of know it's all dodgy stuff. Now, Rampage, this is another reason why we need to find out exactly what's gone on, right? Because if City are not guilty, everyone just keeps like talking like almost like you're assuming these guys are guilty. They're not guilty at the moment, right? And if they're found not guilty, their name needs to be completely cleared, and then everybody just needs to leave them alone and applaud what they've done over the years. That's what needs to happen. Simple as. Lebin says the effects on Italian football due to Juventus' relegation and other scams have been massive. So it'll be the same for English football if City are guilty. People need to think outside of their rivalry. What are you saying then, Lebin, that if they are guilty, we let them off? Is that what you're saying? I'm not sure what you're saying there, because if that's what you're saying, I don't think that's true. I think, listen, it would be seismic. You are right. It has had a big effect on Italian football. The integrity of that league goes down. You start to think to yourself, what am I watching here? All that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, you do know you've got a clean game. It's like in athletics, isn't it? I want to know that when I'm watching the 100 meters final or the 200 meters final or the hurdles or anything, the swimming, whatever it is, that I'm watching the real person win that and not some cheat. So I do think that in that sport, they've been completely right when they make sure that these drugs cheats are stripped of what they won. Because to me, if you cheated, we shouldn't be letting you keep it just because we're trying to save embarrassment for the league. No. If you cheated, you need to be exposed for cheating. You need to face the consequences for cheating so that we don't let it happen again. And then if the league suffers, the league suffers. I'm sorry. That's my view on it. Shaka Phillips says it would be good, Robbie, if City are removed. Makes the Premier League more competitive. It'd be a great opportunity for Man United, Newcastle, Villa to capitalise on that. Imagine City playing Cheltenham and Town. Laugh out loud. Now, again, yeah, all the jokes and all that. But listen, it should only be if they're found guilty. If they're found guilty, full consequences. If not, I'm not sure if it's great for the league if Man City relegated. In the grand scheme of things, it's not. It's not great for the league, but it would be the right thing to do. It would definitely be the right thing to do to possibly relegate Man City if they're proven guilty of nearly all these charges, or give them a huge points deduction. It would be the right, because you've got to send a message to people that you can't cheat and get away with it, whatever it is. But would it be good for the league as a product, as the competitiveness and that? Listen, I like coming up against Man City. I like coming up against testing yourself against the best. So, just getting them relegated just so that we could possibly go on and win a league is not, even though I might joke about it sometimes, really and truly, it's not what it's not the ideal situation for me. But if they're cheating, they're cheating. It's simple. You got to go. Do City still qualify for the World Club Cup, says Stephen Islands. That is a great, great question. That's question of the day. That is question of the day. If they're found guilty of these charges, would they be able to play in that FIFA Club World Cup, which is a very prestigious event? You saw we did the launch on it last week. You see all the clubs in there, your Real Madrids, your this, your that. Would they still be allowed to play in that? By the way, there's scandals going on in a lot of leagues. I mean, let's not forget the big one over in Spain with Barcelona and this thing about, them allegedly paying referees and stuff. I mean, if they're found guilty of that, would they relegate Barcelona in La Liga? That would be catastrophic for that league. But you've got to do the right things here. If people are guilty, you've got to do the right things. You can't allow cheats to prosper. And once again, I'm not saying that Man City have cheated, but I'm just saying you can't afford to let cheats prosper, because then you're just forever going to get cheats. And if there's no consequences, they'll just keep cheating, and other teams will come along and they'll try and do the same. If teams know that the consequences of cheating are that, even a club the size of Man City, with the support they got, with the manager and the players they got, still got relegated for cheating, who else is going to try it? Not many. People are going to say to themselves, I ain't going nowhere near doing any of those dodgy things. That's why it's important that we have the right justice for whatever's happened. David T says, I see they finally found out about Foden's cuts. Don't really get that one. He's been having a poor season, but I don't think is he affected by the charges? Is Man City affected by the charges? Both Manchester clubs get relegated this season. Yes, says Jay. Listen, we only want to see teams get relegated on the pitch. And listen, Man United are not going to get relegated. That's 100%. Oreo Olay says, any negative effects on the league should also be blamed on City for cheating over the years. You don't blame the government for negative effects of criminals after they charge them with a crime. Another good point. Another super chat here comes from Massam, says, speaking of cheats, that's a bit hot. Well, you know what, Massam, yeah? George Graham, who I used to love as a manager at Arsenal, he paid the full consequences of that as an individual, you know what I mean? Which was at the time, for people who don't know, he was accused of taking money, taking bungs because of transfer dealings. He lost his job at Arsenal. So again, that's consequences having to be paid for, and that wasn't specifically cheating, but he lost his job. And there's a lot of people who lose their jobs for things. There's, Paul Pogba got caught, with the guilty on drugs, was banned from playing, and also, ultimately has had to leave Juventus. Now he's without a club. We're talking about one of the biggest names in world football, Paul Pogba. Ivan Toney got got found guilty of the betting stuff, banned. Never really been the same. When we think about it, never really been the same since. Came back after that ban, wasn't really scoring the goals what he was doing before for Brentford. All right, you can say he's over in Saudi now earning big money. But had he not been banned and he continued on where he was with what he was doing at Brentford at that time, where could he be now? Could he be at a real top Premier League club? So these are consequences of breaking the rules. And City would have to face the same consequences. They'd be even bigger. They'd be seismic, I feel. Digital Mod says, considering CAS upheld the times for non-compliance charges, with City accepting a 20 million fine ruling, those 15 plus non-compliance charges will stick. Don't know that yet. Let's wait and see. Everybody is not guilty until, we hear of, the full, the full charges. So they're not guilty at the moment. But is the pressure getting to them? Is the pressure getting to them? I really want to know, because we've never seen City like this. Scott says, relegating them will only mean that they take a promotional place of a team who's earned it. It should be minus 20 to 30 points every season for 5 years. Come on, man, that'd be too much. They may as well shut the club down if that happened. And I don't want to see Man City shut down, even if they were found guilty. Prodigal Fraudson says, because of the half infomeds in the chat, it's embarrassing that I need to give you info about the EPL from India. It's 130 now because of the 15 to 12 charges, and most of them gets added up every year. Hence, it became 115 to 130. You know what, Prodigal Fraudson, yeah? Whether it's 115 or 130, it's still bad. And if they're found guilty, what are the consequences? That's the main thing. To me, it makes no difference whether it's 130 or 115. All of these charges are very serious charges that could lead to very serious consequences for Manchester City. And, even though they claim they're innocent, they must be very nervous now. And I'm just wondering if it's having an effect. I really am wondering if it's having an effect on them. So Razzie says, I'm a Villa fan and can't stand PSR and PL at times, Premier League at times, but the facts are the facts. If City are found guilty, they should pay the price. Sure, the league may suffer, but that's because of City, not the Premier League. And I think it's hard to argue with what he said there, is it? Metallian says, Robbie, the point is that there is no new news on this. Well, this did break today. It was massive over here in the UK, and it has been featured, and I'm sure you've seen it going viral everywhere, so that's why we're talking about it. At the end of the day, ultimately, the only people who knows if this is going to be anything else or if there's any more adds anything to it are the actual lawyers, of which there are a lot of. They're the winners in this, the lawyers. Lawyers can't lose. So they're all right. City will rise, says Dark Carnage. Rise from where, though? Rise from where they are now? Or rise from Division 1? League 1 or League 2? I mean, I'm only joking here, but can you imagine it? Manchester City in League 2? What would happen? Erling Haaland in League 1 or the Championship? You can't imagine that at all. I mean, would those players stay? Would those players stay? How many players would stay if City got relegated? Haaland would be gone in an instant. There'd be a million clubs who'd want him. How many players would stick around? Let me know in the comments who you think would stick around if they got relegated. Digital Mod says, when West Ham were convicted of one charge involving illegally signing Carlos Tevez, they had to pay Sheffield United 25 million and was banned from transfers for 24 months. City would owe over 40 clubs. This is Digital Mods, right? It is one of the things as well that I'm really intrigued to see what would happen if they were found guilty. How many clubs are then going to say, right, I want compensation? Because even if you move down a league position in the Premier League, you've lost money. I mean, this could really open a can of worms. And as I said, the clubs that would really be really angry are those clubs that finished in the top four. Sorry, those clubs who just missed out on the top four. They're going to be, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know, man. This thing could get really, really, really serious. Cited 444 says, let's be real. Even if we get cleared, rival fans and some pundits will say we cheated. They will still pay. They will still say we paid them off. It's stupid. If we get cleared, I want City to sue everybody. Now, that's another perspective. He's obviously a Man City fan. If you're cleared, nobody should say that you cheated. I think it'd be a good thing for Man City fans, because if you're cleared, you know, anybody who then turns around and says, oh, well, you still cheated, I still reckon you cheated, you just look on them and say, yeah, mate, you're bitter, you're jealous, you're envious just because we won everything all over the years. So if I'm a Man City fan, that's what I would want it cleared up. You know, nobody can say anything to you again. Nobody. That's my opinion. So let's see what happens. Nico says Walker will stay in League One. He's probably that level. He's probably that level now. He's not been having the greatest of season. He is the type of player that I reckon would stay. I'm looking at him thinking who'd stay. Who else would stay? Would Foden stay? Certainly after this season, he owes City the way he's been playing. But would he stay? Gundogan stay maybe? Edison would be gone. Rico Lewis would stay. De Bruyne would be gone. Haaland definitely gone. Bernardo Silva's been wanting to go for the last couple of years. He'd definitely go. There'd be a lot of stars leave. Grealish, would he stay? Would Pep Guardiola stay? Would Pep Guardiola stay if City got relegated to League? Pep Guardiola in League One. This is crazy. This is crazy. Pep Guardiola in League One. God, surely not. Surely never. Garben Staunton says they need to be made an example of, plain and simple. The league had no Man City before. It can be without them again. Yeah, but they've really added a lot to the league. What they've won. They're a worldwide brand now as well. It's not the Man City that first came into the league. Joseph Asamoah says they could be found guilty of some charges and some not. That's true. And I reckon that's probably what's going to happen. And it's going to be, again, all on what will be the consequences of the charges they're found guilty of. Because out of all of those charges, I can't see them being found. I mean, if they're found guilty of all of them, surely that's relegation. Prodigal Fraudson says it's 15 to 20 charges. The rest are repeated every year and hence adding up, and hence now 150. But the press likes the big headlines. It's actually 15 to 20 charges. Brother, if they're found guilty, they don't care how many charges it is. I mean, obviously, you are right. The press are having a field day with this. It's big news. Is there a big club? It's big news. But it's serious. It's very, very serious. TJ Schooling says if they're found not guilty with the 130 charges thrown at them, there'll be a backlash from all angles and clubs. Robbie, there's no smoke without fire. They haven't just pulled this out of nowhere. Let's wait and see. TJ Schooling. Let's wait and see. If they're found not guilty, City are going to be raging. I'd expect them, if they're found not guilty, to sue the Premier League. Certainly, if it's my club, I'd want them to sue the Premier League, because they can sue them for, like, I don't know, defaming their name. So, you know, and I'd fully expect that to happen. And this is why the Premier League are under a lot of pressure for this to be for them to be found guilty. Man City have the best lawyers in the world, says actually. I'm sure they have. They got the money. They ain't short of money to get the best lawyers, and having the best lawyers helps you a lot. King Alex Richardson says, Cat Williams says in 2024 is where the liars and cheaters get exposed. He did say that. And I'll tell you what, since he said that, man, we've seen a lot of people going down. You know what I mean? I was reading the other day that he's got another video coming out next year. There's gonna be a lot of nervous people out there, I'll tell you, waiting on that one to drop. Dawit says 3-year ban from the Premier League. What, with them coming back after that, or 3-year ban like they're out of the league, or what? I mean, when I think about it, if they're found guilty of all those charges, and I've been reading up on some of the charges and stuff like that, and they're pretty serious. For me, if they're found guilty of all these, relegation for me to League One, not even just the Championship, League One. They'd have to drop a couple of divisions and a massive fine. The stripping of the trophies, I'm not sure about. I mean, I guess you'd have to. But would it be fair on the fans? I don't know. But certainly points deduction or dropping down leagues, definitely, if found guilty of some of these very serious charges of basically cheating. To being able, you know, the charges basically are you've cheated to enable you to get the best players, the best manager, pay them the best wages, and continue to do that year after year after year. And we all know that if you've got the best players and the best managers, you win leagues. Simple equation. I say this every year. Look around Europe. The teams that spend the best money, the teams that spend the most money, normally, year in, year out, win the leagues around Europe. So the teams that spend the most money in the Premier League, right? And the Premier League is a little bit of a harder one, but over the years, Chelsea have spent loads of money, won leagues. Manchester United have spent loads of money, won leagues. Liverpool spend a lot of money. Arsenal spend a lot of money. They've won leagues over years. No, not recently, but, you know, I mean, you know, in France, PSG. And by the way, these can be bucked every now and again when Leicester won the league, but how many times does that happen? It's the rich clubs that win the league. France, PSG spend the most money, win the league. Germany, even though the Bundesliga, they got the 51% rule and stuff like that. Bayern Munich spend the most money, win the league most of the time. Over in Italy, Inter Milan, Juventus, those teams spend the most money, usually win the league. Or I know Napoli won the league last year. They spend a lot of money, but it's the big spenders that win the league. That's repeated across literally every league, wherever you are. Scotland, Celtic and Rangers spend way more money than the other teams, even though their money that they spend is nowhere near what they spend in England. But in comparison to the other teams in Scotland, they spend the most, they win the league. So if you're a billionaire, you know that spending lots of money is going to help you to win the league. It's a lot more difficult in the Premier League, by the way, because you've got so many clubs that spend that amount of money, but that repeats across most leagues. Spain, Real Madrid, Barcelona spend the most money. Usually one of those two win the league. That is how it goes. So if you've broken rules to enable you to spend more money and then more on wages and all those sort of things, you have to face the consequences. Ahmed says, no, Robbie, they will need to wait for the outcome of the appeal. No doubt, if City were found guilty, they would appeal. I think that's almost certain they'd appeal, and it would drag on. But even being found guilty, even if they appeal, is going to be very to Manchester City, even in the interim. Owen Thompson says, Robbie, remember 2016 City beat United on goal difference, took Champions League qualification. United lost out on Champions League as an example, so they could sue for that, and I think they definitely would sue for that. Those are the sort of things, Owen, and you point that out very well. Those are the sort of things that I'm talking about. If you missed out on that league, on that Champions League money, which is huge for football clubs, way more than winning, the prize money you get for winning the FA Cup and League Cup is minuscule compared to qualifying for the Champions League. And then when you qualify for the Champions League, you can use that money to buy better players, fix the roof. Manchester City, I'm only joking with that. But you get what I'm saying. Of course, they'd be fully within their rights to sue, and I'd expect those clubs would sue. They ain't going to want to do City any favours. Why does man look like he's streaming from HMP? Do I? It's not a prison in here, I can tell you that. It's not too bad. HMP Robbie's Yard, right? What is it? Is it the blue colour? Or maybe I'll change the background or something like that. Like, no, I'm not. Or is it the top? I can guarantee you I'm not in prison. Not being charged with anything, not right now anyway. Oh, my days. But We Are City says, but Arsenal spent 800 and bottle. Listen, 800 million is not really in comparison to what Manchester City have spent over the years. And you know what? You can spend 100 billion as long as you stick to the rule. If you bottle it after that, you bottle it. But did City stick to the rules? And I'm not saying they have broken them, We Are City, but did they stick to the rules? This is not a laugh after, Arsenal for not winning the league. This is all about, did City break rules? Metalli Tin 1884 says Spurs escaped a 12-point deduction on appeal and just paid a slightly bigger fine. Yeah, listen, appeals can work sometimes. It can. But what if you're guilty? What if the appeal fails? The ripple effect, I think he means to say, Wesley Manx says, Robbie, teams that missed out on a Euro entry, there's also teams that, the consequences could be huge. Absolutely huge. Ahmed says, name one Premier League club that grew organically without heavy external funding other than maybe Liverpool. No, Liverpool have had heavy funding. Every single club, Ahmed, in the Premier League has been funded heavily. Many of them have been, we're in the Championship, got big, like let's give a Nottingham Forest, for instance, spent loads of money trying to get back in the league, got back in the league. Every owner, Bournemouth's owners are billionaires. Billion, and not million, billionaires. Right? Literally every owner in the Premier League is not a millionaire, they're a billionaire. Billion. The days of your local millionaire who owned a butcher shop, owning a football club is over. They're all billionaires. Arsenal's owners, billionaires. Liverpool's owners, billionaires. Leicester's owners, billionaires. Bournemouth's owners, billionaires. All of them. They've all been heavily funded. But there's one fundamental thing, right, which we're discussing here. Got 20 clubs. There's a set of rules drawn up that everybody has to abide by. If you stick to the rules, you spend as much money as you want as long as you stick to the rules. If you don't stick to the rules, you've cheated. And if you've cheated, there's consequences. And that is as simple as it is here. That's what it boils down to. Did City stick to the rules? Did City break the rules? That's what we're discussing. It's not about how much people spent. Did you stick to the rules in your spending? Stephen Ireland, because all clubs spend a lot of money. And, you know, you speak to a lot of the clubs in Europe, and we got Champions League on tonight. A lot of those clubs in Europe are moaning and saying, how can we compete with these teams in the Premier League because they spend so much money? Bournemouth, I've got Evan Nilsson, who was the main player at Porto, who are a Champions League club who play in the Champions League year in, year out, that get, you know, 40 to 50,000 fans every game, right? So Champions League football, 40 to 50,000 fans every game, chance of winning the league every season because you're at a top club, big support. But yet still, he chose to come to Bournemouth. 10,000 fans every game. Doesn't have the profile that Porto have. But they're in the Premier League. He's going to get big wages. That's why. But, so every club spends money in the Premier League. But does every club stick to the rules? And this is what's at stake here. Right. Stephen Ireland's grandmother says clubs that don't spend are called Spurs. Spurs spend a lot of money. Every club in the Premier League spends big money, especially when you compare them to other leagues. Teams in France don't spend, apart from PSG, nobody else spends anywhere near what a team in the Premier League. And that's because, a team in the Premier League, I remember there was one season when I think it was Norwich got relegated. And I saw the stats that Norwich earned more money, right? Because they got relegated. They still got the money from being in the Premier League and the parachute money. They earned more money than Juventus that year, who won the league in Serie A. It's crazy, the money that's there. But you've got to stick to the rules. Got to stick to the rules. Simple as that. Let's do a couple more. Arsenal, Liverpool, the only teams that have integrity and don't cheat out of the big six. Listen, dynamic. I'd love to claim that. But as it stands, there has been no other teams that have sort of been accused of breaking the rules. And until that time, they've all got integrity. Even City. Let's wait and see what happens. Rizek says Bournemouth Stadium is an embarrassment. They have no fans. Talk about financial doping. They just did it in the lower leagues. That's a bit harsh. I mean, number one, I love going to Bournemouth's ground. It's got a load of character. Number two, they've come up through the leagues and they deserve to be where they are. And as far as we know, they haven't broken any rules. So they deserve to be where they are. They're trying to grow as a football club. Because that's the other thing. And I do think this needs to be looked at, right, is that how do clubs emerge and become as big as an Arsenal, Man United, Liverpool, Chelsea? Or how do you become that big? You've got to spend a load of money to do that. Clubs do need to be allowed to spend money, and I think they are allowed to spend money, but within the rules. But how can City will argue and say, how could we bridge that gap between being sort of mediocre club in the Premier League and being a real superpower? So that's a question for another day. But it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Well, listen, I've come to the end of the show today. Been running for about an hour. I really value all of the comments that have come in. It's been really good. Really brilliant. Don't forget to subscribe here on DR Sports. Don't forget as well, become a member and you can get to see some of that exclusive content. We've got some great behind the scenes stuff that is out right now. And you can only view that if you're a member. So become a member to view that. If you're not a member, don't worry. Still got all of our great content, Best of Enemies. And we're going to be back, of course, on Thursday with the weekend preview. People, of course, some big games going on tonight in the Champions League. You know the game I'm going to be really intrigued to watch tonight? The game that is taking place between Atalanta a Real Madrid. If Real Madrid don't win that, they're in real danger of not qualifying for this new format in the Champions League, a format that was put together to really make sure that teams like your big teams like your Real Madrids go far in the competition. That is an interesting game tonight, Atalanta versus Real Madrid. If they were to lose that, whew, let's wait and see what happens with that one. But it's really Atalanta, a good side. Of course, it pits the winners of the Champions League against the winners of the Europa League. So that is going to be such an interesting game. Never know. Maybe we'll come back later and have a little chat about that. But thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to subscribe, guys, and have yourself a great rest of the day. And let's wait and see what happens. What will be the consequences? Lots of rumors about 130 charges now, not 115. But will they stick? Will Manchester City be innocent? And if they are innocent, what then happens to the Premier League's reputation? Do the Premier League, do lots of people who run that organization have to resign? But if they're found guilty, what will be the consequences? Will they get relegated? Will they lose titles? And will loads of clubs queue up to sue them? Be very interesting to find out. Thanks for watching and see you again very, very soon.